If you were to ask me at pretty much any point in my life what my dream was, or what I wanted more than anything, I wouldn't even have to think about it. It was always the same wish. I want to be a girl. So why in the hell did it take me almost 28 years to do something about it? Well, do you have a minute to talk about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Alright, before we get into this one, I just want to start off by saying I upload a new video every Friday. So if you like what you see today and would like to stay up to date with my content, be sure to subscribe down below. You can also leave a comment while you're down there if you have any questions for me or any topics you'd like me to cover. I do read the comments. Without further ado, let's dig up some deep scars. The date was March 5th, 1993. A child by the name of was born in a nice, quiet Utah suburb. Oh, this is me we're talking about. Okay. There I was, a brand new, mint condition baby girl, just ready for her life. It's just one tiny problem, and that was my penis. Stupid. The doctor saw it and just assumed that I was a boy. I mean, I get that he had to put something on the birth certificate, and he would have been right like 99% of the time, but it still really sucked for me, and it put me in an awkward position for the next 27 plus years. So they wrapped me up in a blue blanket and presented my wonderful parents their new son. My childhood was great. I lived in a happy home with an older brother and 2 younger sisters, as well as my beautiful mother, who stayed home and raised us, and my incredible father, who was always there and always came through no matter how hard times got. Everyone told me I was a boy, so I just believed them. They had no reason to think they were wrong, and I had no reason to doubt them. At the time, it didn't seem to make a difference anyway. For the first few years, it was easy pretending to be a boy. I was just me. I would hang out with my brother and sisters. I had friends that were boys and girls. We did everything together. Our genders never mattered. We were kids. My parents couldn't care less if I was playing with Barbies or a football. Life was easy. I grew up in northern Utah in a very conservative and religious community. Utah, as you may know, is best known for its overwhelmingly massive supply of Mormons. I mean, they're everywhere over here. For the first 7 years of my life, I was blissfully unaware of Mormon culture and really didn't know anything about it. It was around me, but in my home it wasn't talked about. We never went to church until that fateful day when the missionaries came knocking. For those of you who don't know what Mormon missionaries are religious salesmen who go door to door selling eternal salvation in exchange for your unwavering loyalty to their lifestyle, as well as 10% of your income for the rest of your life. The missionaries' end goal, though, is to baptize you. Everyone the age of 8 and older can be baptized into the church. Being baptized is like signing a religious contract with God and Jesus and the Holy Ghost, promising your undying loyalty to them and the rules they give you. More specifically, the rules the church gives you. Now today, I think that as an 8-year-old, I was too young to make that kind of a commitment. I was still new to this church, and this set me on a path for my future that I could not have possibly understood at that time. But all my friends were getting baptized, and my family wanted me to get baptized. And if I did it, I would get gifts and a party, and they'd put me up on stage at church and talk about me. So as an 8-year-old, that was all I needed to hear. Where do I sign? Dunk me. You like that title? I like that title. More so than most organizations, the Mormon Church has very distinct roles for men and women. There's this superpower that Mormons have called the priesthood, and you can have it as long as you're loyal. It lets you do cool God stuff like bless the sick and baptize people into the church, and you can even get more of a direct link with God, or maybe even He'll talk to you. Who knows? Oh, but only men can have it. Women's role, on the other hand, is to bear children and raise them to follow the rules of the church. And one day send their children on missions, and so on and so forth. And if they stray away, it's all her fault for not raising them right, just so you know. Men are also expected to serve missions. Women, not so much. The church would much rather you just stay home, marry a returned missionary, and start having children right away. Either way, it's all about increasing the ranks and bringing in more of that sweet, sweet tithing. So now that I was a part of this world and I signed my contract, my life was planned for me, and it started right away. I was 8, but the church already had its plan for me. First was Cub Scouts, and that was not my scene at all. It was the first time I'd been in a group exclusively for boys. And I had a couple friends with me, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world all the time. Some of the things were actually even a little bit fun. But most of the time I would try to find pretty much any excuse to avoid going. Luckily my parents weren't too strict on it and didn't really make me unless I wanted to. I did quit after a few years. I never even made it to the Boy Scouts. I think that's probably for the best though. I remember my sisters would talk about their version of Scouts, and I used to think it sounded so much more fun, and I was even kind of jealous that they got to do all that while I had to go do all that survivalist bullshit out in the woods. As you get older in the church, they just separate the boys and the girls more and more. Throughout elementary school, I really only had one girlfriend, and she was more like my sister, honestly. Saw her all the time. I spent so little time with other girls, other than my family, for years. I was already a very shy kid and had a hard time making friends. I never felt welcome in a group of girls, and I never felt right in a group of boys. My small group of friends during this time was a group of kind of the outcasts. We were the ones that didn't have any other friends, and we were kind of quirky and weird and did our own thing and didn't care what anyone else was doing because we were us. I still love all of them for sticking with me through all these years. I still talk to all of them occasionally, not as much as I used to, but I've spoken to all of them within the last 6 months. So I did have some great friends during this time. At around age 13 in the church, boys get a little taste of the priesthood. It's called the Aaronic priesthood, as opposed to the Melchizedek priesthood, which is like the good one. You don't get all the good powers, but you kind of get enough to practice for when you do get those superpowers. For example, you can't bless people, but you get to bless the sacrament. And instead of going door to door to convert people, you go door to door playing the role of a tiny collections agent, collecting the tithing of everyone in the ward who hasn't settled yet. No, I'm not joking. The big thing is, now that you have the priesthood, you're about to get a big dump of new rules and responsibilities that are pretty much designed to fight against the natural impulses children go through during puberty, which is what they'll be going through during this time. As an assigned boy, I would begin to learn what it meant to be the big, strong Mormon man I was destined to be. I was to continue going through school, eventually graduate. Then I was to leave my home, serve a mission for 2 years. When I returned, I should start college and find a wife as fast as possible and start having those kids. At this point, I'll be about 21 years old. I was to work every day to provide for my family, and once I retired, I was to continue to devote my life to the church through volunteer work. Possibly I could go on a later in life mission with my wife, or volunteer at the temple, or just serve a calling in my ward. And that's what my life was going to be. And the next 6 years were a test to prove my worthiness to begin that life after high school. They told me about all the challenges I'd be facing over the next 6 years, how kids that I grew up with and have called my friends for years may start straying away from the path, and I would be tempted to follow. But I had to stay strong and stay on the path. I was to cut bad influences out and spend time only with people on my path. I had to act like a man and could not waver from my manly duties. I was also not allowed to spend time alone with girls anymore. I could not date until I was 16, and I was not to have sex until marriage. Also, nothing even remotely romantic or sexual with a man. None. Because that's gay, and gay is bad. Little did they know that's actually straight for me, but they didn't know. It's okay. No one knew at the time. I was also never to look at pornography or masturbate. None of that, okay? If I even thought about breaking any of the rules, I was to tell my bishop as soon as possible. We would have semi-regular one-on-one meetings behind closed doors in his office, where he would ask me invasive and personal questions to make sure that I wasn't straying from the path. In these meetings, if you confessed that you broke one of the rules, he would come up with a plan for you to fix you, and you were also told not to take the sacrament for X amount of weeks. Now, Mormons live in a very tight community, and they're a bunch of gossipy bitches. So if you're not taking the sacrament, everyone knows. They don't know why you're not or what you did, but they know that you did something, and they ask questions. It's a way of publicly shaming you to your peers to scare you from breaking the rules again. You are also encouraged to get on the stage and confess your sin to everyone so that they can, help you through your struggle. So I learned early that it was in my best interest to just lie to him. I barely knew this guy, and I was not about to tell him that I was uncomfortable with literally everything he wanted me to do, and that I felt like I fit in more with the girls and would do way better on that path. That'd be like 10 weeks no sacrament and an insane amount of pressure to tell everyone about this, and I was not about to go through that. So I lied, and I played my role as a perfect little Mormon boy as best I could for as long as I could. Aside from trying to figure that out, I also just heard about this thing called bipolar. Also, my body is changing in ways that is destroying my soul more and more every day. So I'm doing great. Throughout junior high and high school, I did a pretty good job living undercover as the good little Mormon boy. I did my priesthood duties, I went to church, I read my books. No girls, no homo, good Mormon. But it really messed with my brain. Every single day I was having thoughts that I wasn't right. I didn't know what was wrong, but I hated myself. I hated my body. I hated the future that was chosen for me, and I saw no escape. I was so embedded in this culture that the thought of leaving equated to the thought of me losing every single person in my life. All my friends, all my family would hate me. They'd disown me. I'd have to leave, and I didn't feel like I could tell anyone about it. I was honestly forgetting what girls were like. It may sound weird, but I kind of was. I wasn't making the connection of my discomfort with my gender because I had very little frame of reference what being a girl even was. I just knew I was wrong. I slowly started to kind of drift away in the middle of high school, but then I decided that this was all in my head, and I just had to pick myself up and devote myself to this church, and God would help me get rid of these thoughts, and He would help me become comfortable in my body. So I started taking it much more seriously for a while. I even graduated seminary at the end of high school, but after graduation, luckily, I really started drifting away. I made a ton of new friends who weren't members of the church, as well as a lot of friends within the queer community, and learned so much about myself and the world outside of this cult that I grew up in. And things started to look a little bit brighter. By the time I was 21, I was pretty much fully against the church. I felt like they'd brainwashed me and stolen a significant part of my childhood. I legally removed my name and file from church records and never looked back. I was very vocal about my disdain for the church as well. And amazingly, I found that a lot of people that I loved felt the same way, but they too were just afraid to say it. My entire immediate family, as well as some of my best friends, escaped as well. I do want to say that not all members of the church are bad. It's the institution that's the problem. They manipulate their members and ingrain them so deeply into a society that you forget that there's more to life. I would never shame and have never shamed anyone for being a member of the church. I understand the grasp they hold on you. It's hard to break out. I honestly see them as victims. There are some amazing people who still follow the church, and I still love them. I just hope one day they see the light. Over the next 6 years, I was finally able to slowly discover who I was. It took a long time to unlearn all the horrible habits and thoughts that the church beat into my head, but I did it. little by little, I would chip away at that shell that I was hiding in. First, I came out as bisexual. Then I came out as pansexual. And then on October 26th, I shattered that shell and finally saw the whole picture and realized that I was a transgender woman. Still pansexual, but a gender identity and sexuality have nothing to do with each other. It's been a long journey of self-discovery. I have made so many incredible heathen friends that I never would have even associated with had I stayed on that path, and those friends saved my life. Everything that's ever happened has led me to this moment, and this moment rules. My life is in the best place it's ever been, and everything, good and bad, led me here. I'm just glad I finally found myself. It would have been nice to maybe start my transition younger, but I think I started exactly when I needed to. So I know today was pretty heavy and controversial. There may be people who disagree with what I've said, or that I've made upset by saying them, but I meant every word. I've held it in for long enough. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked what you saw, give me a thumbs up and a share. I post a new video every Friday, so if you'd like to stay up to date with my content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Until then, have a wonderful day. I love you, and I will see you next Friday.